4-letter words. Don't worry.
Welcome to another episode of Coder Conversations. Today we have a very special guest, writer, producer, director, designer, Allan Neuwirth. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
You sure did.
Absolutely. So man, I'm really glad to have you on the show today. You have a very impressive background. So do you mind like kind of starting from the beginning and how do you started off with writing and just guide us through your career?
Sure. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Tim and Brian. And boy, oh boy, I was an artist. I was a visual artist for many years. I was the kid who drew in class all the time.
Yeah,
And
right.
the kid who sort of had permission to like crack wise without getting in trouble from a very early age. I don't know why my teachers put up with it, to be honest with you, but
Were
they did.
you like a class clown?
Not that's funny that you asked that. I heard someone make the distinction the other day. They said there's a difference between the class clown and the class wit. I was the class wit. there were clowns too, but a clown that had never used clown to describe me. Anyway, so because I was always drawing, I was always writing and drawing my own comic strips and I would write lots and lots and lots of stuff. I thought I was going to work for a very popular magazine at the time called Mad Magazine when I grew up. But the universe had other plans for me. And I went to art school. Really for I'd say the first third of my career, I was a designer, illustrator, animator, and art director of television shows and commercials and all of that.
Oh, wow. So you did animation too.
I was a hands-on, classic animator.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was interesting. In my very early 20s, I had an unbelievable amount of success working on animation segments and animated show openings and also commercials for like ABC and HBO and NBC. And but then I wanted to tell stories. I decided along the way I wanted to be a storyteller. I never thought of myself as a writer, actually. And then in my 20s, just weird stuff happened along the way. I ended up writing comedy material for some comedians and TV personalities. I ended up, I started art directing TV shows. And then, I'm trying to remember. I had a friend, I was doing a series of animated flip books for Golden Books of Universal monsters, Frankenstein, Dracula. This is a long time ago.
Nice.
Yeah. And one of the animators that I worked with, his name was John Dilworth. I hired him to do some of the work. And so he ended up going on to create Courage the Cowardly Dog on Cartoon Network and other cult TV shows. So somehow I ended up writing. My very first job in TV was head writing and developing a TV series for Jim Henson, Cartoon Network, and Sesame Workshop. It was called Big Bag. And it aired it's on Cartoon Network, every week. And they didn't give
that's
enough.
That's how you broke into the industry?
Yeah, it kind of is actually. And then from then on, I started writing lots of episodic, TV shows, a lot of cartoons. And along the way, I'm really abridging this, by the way. Along the way, I had other crazy offers. I mean, I was head writing TV shows, I was story editing, and I was doing lots of script writing. My designing slowed down almost to a trickle at that point, but I had a sense.
And this is in your 20s, we're talking?
This is a 20s going into my 30s.
Into 30s, okay.
Yeah, and then in my 40s, I started to get weird invitations to do things that I'd never done before. A lady I had worked with said, "Do you want to make a movie with me?" And I said, "Well, I've never produced a film before." I had produced a documentary about ABBA. That was a lot of fun, but I had never not a
interesting.
Yeah, not a narrative feature film. And my friends all said, "Are you crazy? Do it. You have nothing to lose, everything to gain."
Nothing to lose, all upside.
Yeah, so I said yes, and I produced my first feature film. It was called Drawing Home. Who was in it? Rutger Hauer was in it, Kate Mulgrew, Wallace Shawn, a lot of people. And then along came another opportunity to work as a producer on Call Me by Your Name, And so I just kept saying yes to everything, basically. And this is like the Cliff Notes version of my career. But
Yeah.
I just kept on doing stuff. And so at this point now, I'm about to make a new film. I'm about to write and produce a new feature film. I've got a TV series that I'm exec producing, starting to shoot in Ireland in January. I start the movie next month. I've just been very busy.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I've been a busy creator.
Oh, that's amazing. It sounds like you've had success pretty much throughout your whole career. Was there anything in particular that you did to keep getting these opportunities?
Something, Tim, the only thing I can say is, look, there's no such thing as continued success all throughout. I mean, some people have had it, but there's always slack periods, in between. And so you don't know. The crazy thing about our business is you finish a big job and you think, oh my God, am I ever going to work again? Did I say, oh, sorry. Okay. You think, am I ever going to work again? And somehow you do, and so there were periods in between. I don't know. A friend of mine gave me great advice years and years ago. I was struggling to do things. And she said to me, why don't you picture yourself in a boat on a water instead of fighting against the stream? Why don't you just let the current carry you and just, do things that you've never done before, try things you've never experienced before. And I thought that was great advice. So that's what I started to do. And one thing led to another.
Advice. Yeah, that's really good advice.
Yeah, thank you. I tell people when they ask me, how did your career go along the way it has? I tell them, just try things, challenge yourself, try things you've never done before. The worst that you can have happen is fail, right? I mean, so what?
Well, yeah, it makes me think of like someone's career, like a Steve Jobs. They have failures, they have successes, but they're not, Steve Jobs isn't defined by his failures. He'll forever be remembered for his successes.
That's really interesting you said that. I was talking about, I forget which film director recently with a friend. And it was someone who had made a lot of hits and also a lot of bombs. And she said to me, don't judge people by the worst of their work. Judge them by the best of their work. Because everybody fails.
There's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah.
So you weren't necessarily super intentional about like going in this direction in your career. You just kind of took the opportunities as they came.
You know what? From a very early age, I was kind of immersed in show business because my family knew actors and people in the business, and they tell me that when I was a little kid, I used to say I want to be working in television, and so I guess maybe subconsciously I sort of went in this direction. I know that no matter what I've done in life, I've constantly been exposed to let's call them celebrities, people accomplished people in show business. Whether it was, I took a job as a teen working in this store that just closed a year or two ago called Hammacher Schlemmer. It was in Manhattan on 57th Street. So every day I was exposed to Paul Newman and just some of the biggest movies, Groucho Marx, biggest movie stars and TV stars in the world.
Nice.
And my whole life has continued like that. I ended up inadvertently moving into an apartment building in New York filled with celebrities and kids of celebrities. And it's just, you can't plan this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So to get into more of the 90s, you mentioned you worked for Mad Magazine. I remember that. That was the comedy magazine, correct?
I know I wanted to work for Mad Magazine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a very popular magazine up until maybe 10 years ago, something like that. Its popularity declined at a certain point because people stopped reading paper. Everything was online, still is. So,
right, everything's online now.
Pretty much. So, and there are still magazines, but they struggle. They practically give them away. I don't even know why. I'm sure you guys have gotten subscription, requests in the mail, and they'll give you like an entire year of some magazine for a few bucks. Maybe it benefits them to have a print circulation. But anyway, no, I wanted to work for Mad because it kind of informed my insane sense of humor when I was growing up. And,
Yeah.
In fact, one day my father came home at dinner time, said, "Oh, I met somebody from Mad Magazine." I must have been, I don't know, I was probably about 16. And I said, "Oh my God, can I meet them?" And so he arranged it. I went up there with my,
Oh,
with my
wow.
portfolio. Yeah. And they were very kind. And then they took me into a room called the morgue. It sounds, ghastly, but it was where they keep all the finished
Right.
art in flat files. They let me look at all the work I had looked at when I was a kid growing up. Very, very amazing cartoonists. And that's when I saw how nobody's perfect. I saw how there was whiteout and that people had covered up mistakes. I thought everyone drew and it just was perfect the first time,
Yeah, right.
but no, everybody screws things up. And so, yeah, lessons, just lessons learned along the way in life.
Yeah, the
Yeah, I mean,
point you made.
it makes me think about this podcast. Kevin started this podcast, what, about 3 years ago now, right?
Yeah, I was like probably 2.5 years ago. It started off as a coding podcast, so this why you have the name Coder Conversations. But that subject matter it has a limited audience, so
Yeah.
that's why we expanded it a bit.
Well,
So yeah,
Kevin, how did it start? What was it about when you started out?
Okay, so yeah, I'm in the software industry. I've been there for around 8.5 years, and I kind of want to give advice to other coders on how to advance their careers, and talking
Ah,
about different things in the technology space. But I found quickly like I wouldn't even listen to technology podcasts like that. So um, you know the subject matter gets kind of boring after a while. So
yeah.
just had to just had to pivot, like you mentioned. Sometimes you fail at one thing, but it's not a permanent failure. You just have to take that position you're at and then move on to something else.
And you did, absolutely. I mean, writing code is like a whole language. It's like learning another language. I have friends who do it, and I'm just in awe because I wouldn't even begin to know how to do it.
Yes, I think like the thing I learned about during coding is you pretty much have to learn how to learn. Like you just have to sit there and you're going to be in a state of confusion, but you just have to stick with it and you slowly pick up little aspects, and then maybe a few months later it all comes together and it makes sense and it seems easy. So just not getting discouraged while you're in the process of learning. I think that's the big lesson I've learned from that.
Right. Which
Yeah.
applies to a lot of other areas of life.
Yeah, can you talk about some of the failures that you came across in your career and how you overcame it?
Oh boy, let's see. Failures. Yeah, I have worked on, that's a crazy thing. You can work on projects that you're so close to, and you bust your hump trying to make them as good as possible. And sometimes you spend a couple of years on something, and then nobody sees it. Like the first film that I told you about.
Yeah.
I had two films come out at the same time. One was called Drawing Home, which was the first one, and then Call Me by Your Name came out at like the same week. I went to a movie theater just to see. I'd worked in television so much for many years, and you don't get to see the audience watching or hating or whatever your work. And
Right.
I said I'm going to go to the theater and sit and watch an audience watching what I've done. And the first one, there was no one there. A homeless person straggled in just to get out of the outside and take a nap. I'm not kidding. Just like wandered in, sat down, and fell asleep, which was very depressing. Although the movie has since won a bunch of awards at a lot of festivals and such. But so I thought, okay, the other one's got to be doing better than this. So I went down the block to another movie,
Yeah.
and they were hanging from the rafters for Call Me by Your Name. I mean, there were so many people in there. It was thank God for the other one. But in terms of other failures, it's very often it wasn't my fault. It was, if it's for television, they put it on at the wrong time, or there was competition from another network that everybody was watching the other thing instead of, the thing I worked on. One failure was a show I produced and head wrote a show for Amazon Prime called The Bug Diaries, and really worked very, very hard on it. But there was a character who had two moms. Wanda Sykes voiced one of them. I forget who did the other. And a lot of people got very up in arms about it. Was the character was a worm? Okay, worms they don't have any particular sex. They're hermaphrodites. So
Right.
the worm could have two mothers. And a lot of people got very upset about that because they felt we were pushing the agenda, which we were not, by the way. So, that only lasted one season. I got a lot of hate mail.
Oh no.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Hate mail is an awful lot of fun. If you're going to read the good stuff, you're going to have to read the good stuff too. Yeah.
You gotta that bad stuff comes along with it. Yeah.
Unfortunately. And there have been others, successes and failures along the way. I can't remember them all right now. I've worked on about 40 TV shows and I forget
wow.
how many films, and so some sink, some swim. I mean,
Now, what was your favorite thing to work on? Like, do you prefer the little kid shows, or do you prefer more, contemporary adult kind of stuff?
Yeah. I don't like little kid shows. I have worked on kid shows, but not usually for the very, very young, because my own personal taste in entertainment and humor is pretty out there, much edgier, As an example, I wrote a lot of scripts for Rugrats, the reboot of Rugrats, over the last few years. It was like writing for The Simpsons. There were really
nice.
very few restrictions.
Yeah.
Placed on us. But I like general audiences. I like writing for everybody, or I guess they call it family now, because they have to name it something. But really, if you write for yourself, if you create for yourself, just to amuse yourself, and hope that everybody else gets it too. To me, that's my favorite kind of thing to do, and I'm about to do one like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it sounds like it.
So, how do you draw inspiration for these various characters?
It depends on the situation. In some cases, somebody will come to you with an existing idea. Like I worked on a show called The Octonauts years ago, which became a big hit on Disney and on the BBC. Well, it was a book. It was a series of books to begin with. So I didn't have to create the characters, but I certainly helped develop them for television, because I worked as a story editor on the first season. So, it's hard to answer that question, Kevin. It comes from, you can't say where it comes from. It's just sort of, I was talking about this yesterday with a composer friend, and I said to him, how do you know when you come up, do you hear music in your head all the time? And he said, yes. I said, well, how do you know if you're writing it in your brain or you heard that someplace before, and you don't remember where you heard it? And he said, it's really tough, man. He said, sometimes you don't know, but so, and creating is like that. Where do ideas come from? I could be doing anything during the day or at night in bed, and suddenly ideas will come to me. Generally speaking, if you're on a project and you get excited about working on it, your brain starts churning and all sorts of things come flying at you when you least expect it. Not so often when you're sitting and trying to think about it, but more often when you're doing something else, let's say at the gym, or you're walking around, or you're taking a shower.
Yeah, no, well, what you just said right there, taking a shower, I heard about, I forget who it was, but they're talking about being creative or writing scripts, and like, how do you come up with new characters, new ideas? And the guy said he would take literally like 5 to 10 showers every day, just because there's something about that monotony, something about that, the running water, the sound, your brain you can kind of space out a bit. He said there was something about that led to him being more creative. So
it's really true. Did this guy grow gills eventually and be able to breathe underwater? But he's right. You never know where ideas are going to come at you from, and often it's when you're doing something else with your mind and your body So a shower
Yeah.
is it puts you in an altered state of consciousness in a way. You know, going running does that. Working out at the gym does that. Sleeping. I mean, every night we write films in our head. All your dreams, you're just creating situations, characters,
Yeah.
dialogue.
Right.
Everyone can do it.
Yeah, I think our brains are kind of like receivers. You know, you kind of have to dig within and find like where your brain is naturally attuned to, because, you know, I used to like to draw, but I never had the creativity spark. I could never really create characters in my head. So,
But you liked to draw. Were you having fun when you were doing it?
somewhat like, because I'm super critical of myself, so I would kind of look at my artwork and like just really bash it, and then it stopped being fun. So
That's the problem that people have. When you're a little kid, for example, you know, you draw, you create, you make collages, you color, you do all sorts of stuff because nobody has told you, or you haven't told yourself, oh, someone else is better than me at this. You just do it because I think everybody's got creative spark in them. And the reason I asked you if you enjoyed it when you were doing it is because most people do, but then they get very self-critical, or they'll see a friend or a classmate
Right.
who's quote unquote better at it. And so you go, oh, I can't.
Yeah. Right.
You know, and that's what kills creativity.
yeah, that's a great point. Like once you start comparing yourself to others, that's when the fun starts to disappear and it becomes like a technical race.
That's why they say dance like no one's watching you.
Yeah, I wish somebody would have
Yeah.
told me.
What's
Well, it's
funny
not-
is I used to live out in LA and I was a session drummer. So
Yeah.
I'd be on like live gigs, studio gigs. And, you know, at some point I would just say no to a lot of stuff because I had this concept in my head that I don't want to ruin music for myself. Like, I don't want to just take a gig to get money if I'm not going to enjoy it. So I was doing like a lot of jazz fusion and stuff like that. And that
Wow.
really like kind of piqued my interest. And so I was passing on all the pop stuff. But one of my buddies in the music industry, he's like, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You should be taking every opportunity that's thrown your way. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to ruin music for myself.
Yeah, but your friend was right, because if you stretch,
He was right. No,
I know.
he's much more successful than I am.
Well, you listen. You're still here. You're still alive. You still have opportunities ahead of you, and you know,
Very
you know
true.
better now, right?
Very true. Yes.
I mean, one of the reasons that I ended up doing everything I do is because here's the thing: the world wants to pigeonhole us and say, "Oh, that's so and so. He or she does that." But who says you have to only do that?
Right.
Why can't you do this too? And why can't you do that other thing too? No one stops you. I mean, you have to earn a living, obviously, and so you know you have to do something to put food on the table and a roof over your head. But nobody stops you from trying all sorts of things in life, and we only have one go round. You know, in these bodies, this is it. So I
This
always
is it. Yeah.
I tell people, try everything, try things. Worst case scenario, you don't like it or you're not that good at it, and you realize maybe I better do something else. You know, but you never know.
Does a danger of being pigeonholed exist in writing as it does like acting? So, for example, Jaleel White, we know him as Steve Urkel, and you know it's
Sure.
hard for him to shake that.
Yeah, well, yeah, but the thing is, when it comes to somebody like Jaleel, he got so successful playing Urkel on that show that's all anybody thought of him as, and it's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, how many people in life have that kind of fame, even from playing one character? If you're an actor, most people never.
Rare. Yeah.
It is very rare. So it's a
Really
blessing and a
rare.
curse. You know, I love
It
Quentin
makes me
Tarantino.
think of the guy from Seinfeld. I think his name is Michael Richards, Kramer.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, I don't think he's really done anything else besides Seinfeld. Like, I don't think he ever really got cast for anything else because he got kind of pigeonholed into that role,
Well,
which
he had.
that's not even his personality. It's just a character.
I know. Something else happened to him that there's a reason why you don't see him anymore. He was doing a nightclub act. Now, mind you, he had already done Seinfeld. He was very successful. And then he and his castmates had negotiated deals that just paid them scads of money. I mean, so much money that they would never have to work another day in their lives. But
Right.
of course, they continue to work anyway. Well, Michael Richards loved doing stand-up, and he was doing a stand-up routine in LA, and somebody got aggressive with him, and he went off on them in a very not politically correct way. He used
Right.
some very improper language, let's say, and it got him banned. It destroyed his career.
And someone taped it. So it went like someone had it on their phone.
That's right.
Uploaded it. This was like the first like viral thing where like a person got taken down because there was someone in the club. I don't even know if you're allowed to film in these comedy clubs, but people don't care. So someone was filming it and they caught his whole meltdown, and then it went viral, and it pretty much ruined his career.
And was he the first that happened to? I'm trying to think. It might have been.
I think he's the first where like something going viral like that like really destroyed their career.
It did. I mean, in his case, he's crying all the way to the bank. I know
right. He doesn't have to do anything ever again. He's a millionaire.
No, but he's a funny guy and he's a good actor. And I mean, Kramer was iconic. He appeared on Jerry Seinfeld's podcast, and he was very contrite. He was crying basically about how he wished he hadn't messed up and destroyed his career with that. And who knows what was inside of him, because I don't think he's racist. But
you're talking about comedians in cars getting coffee? The Seinfeld show? Yeah, I love that show.
It's a great show. He's a guest on one of those episodes.
Yeah, I caught that one. Yeah, very good.
No, he talks about it. Yeah, but to get back to your original point, very often it's not that kind of thing that will destroy somebody. It's just being thought of a certain way. This is what he does. This is what she does. And casting directors and a lot of directors can't think of them as anything else. So you'll hear actors complain, oh my gosh, they keep coming back to me to do this and that. Oh, here's a good example. I was doing a show, and I needed it was an animated show. I needed a perfect voice. It was a cicada. It was a cicada on that same show, actually, The Bug Diaries. And I thought, Jason Alexander would be great, play George on Seinfeld, which is why I'm thinking of this. And so we got him into the studio, and he said to me, so you want me to do George? Because everybody was saying that to him. And I said, no, we want Broadway Jason. We don't want George. He was so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Because he sings, he dances, he doesn't, Yeah, he doesn't like to be pigeonholed as George, but none of the actors do usually.
So you kind of brought up an interesting point about like the cancel culture. Do you find it was significantly different in the 90s? In the 90s, felt a little more freer, like you could say more without worrying about having to be canceled the next day. I think the internet makes it to where, if you say anything, it's out the next day, and the mob can rush you after that.
That's so true. It wasn't cancel culture was never like it is today. I wrote a book, and I wrote a few books, but one book I wrote called "They'll Never Put That on the Air," and it's all about how television grew up in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, thanks to a handful of comedy shows. There was a lot of things you never could do or say or show on TV for years, because the censors were very, very strict. And then people came along and started breaking the rules. And nowadays you'll hear, we could never do that again. Shows that would expose bigotry, like All in the Family. They had to show a bigot named Archie Bunker. They had to show him on the show, and you had to hear what he was saying to understand what an idiot he was. Now they're saying, we could never do that today, because people would be so triggered by what he says, they wouldn't even care that he's on there to be mocked, to be made fun of, to show what a jerk he was. So in a way, I mean, cancel culture it's been kind of destructive. It's look what happens to politicians. It happens to all sorts of people now. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of it, and some people deserve to be canceled, by the way. I will say that,
For
but
sure.
not as
Yeah,
many,
for sure.
not as many as have been. I think it's gone way over the top. We've become very, very sensitive, hypersensitive, so much so that stand-up comedians feel they can't do what they, what
Yeah.
they've been doing for
Yeah,
years.
I was just gonna say, it's funny you mentioned that. I was just gonna say someone like a Dave Chappelle,
Yeah,
who's, wildly famous, probably, one of the best comedians of all time. And
yep,
he's talking about how he's thought about quitting because people attack him on Twitter or whatever. People like I think the LGU, if I'm saying that right. They've kind
yeah,
of
I
gone
think so.
after him, and he feels like he's like, well, what's the big deal? I'm just making jokes. Like, you can't laugh at it. So I think a lot of people, they take things way more seriously now than they used to in, let's say, the '90s.
They do, and but you've still got comedians who are either secure enough and or audacious enough to not care. Like, Ricky Gervais. Are you familiar with him?
Oh yeah, he's great.
Well,
The Office.
Ricky, he'll still say anything he wants, and he'll just say, "Folks, they're jokes. They're jokes. Please, anybody who knows me knows these are just." I interviewed him on stage once for HBO,
Oh wow.
and invited. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. An invited audience. We just sat and drank beers and talked for an hour, like 90 minutes.
He seems like
And
a really great guy. Yeah.
he's very smart and he's very funny. But he, in other words, he keeps doing his act the way it is. Jerry Seinfeld keeps doing his act the way it is. Chappelle will not be bowed. He's gonna. They have. I can't say the actual words on the air. They have FU money, So they get
Yeah.
away. When you're that secure, you can do anything, and you don't. Oh, I don't care. I don't care what people say about me.
That's kind of like the comedian Cat Williams. You ever hear of him?
No, I don't know him. Tell me.
He's like known as like kind of like the king of underground comedy.
Oh, no kidding. I got to find out about him. Is it spelled CAT?
KAT.
KAT. Cat Williams. I'm
Yeah,
looking him up right
Cat
now.
Williams. There's
Here he is.
I think there's at least one of his specials on Netflix where he has like a gold suit on or something like that. I forget the name of it, but that one's really funny. I think it's he's in like Jacksonville, Florida, and like a lot of the it's pretty cool. Like he did his research. A lot of the references are about Jacksonville. But yeah, if you find that one, check that out. He's unique, but
I'm looking at his resume.
He says whatever he wants, just like Chappelle. Or like Chris Rock. There's some comedians who, or like a Sebastian. You know him?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he'll say anything.
As for Chris
and
Rock.
do.
Please go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh no! All I was going to say is that well, your point is taken. Yes, he'll do and say anything because he knows he can. Chris Rock can say anything he wants to, but he might get slapped in the face by somebody.
Exactly.
This doesn't happen every day, but it happens every once in a while. Someone will have a reaction. But I've got to look up Cat because I see his name is actually Micah Williams. I've probably seen him and didn't remember his name. Because I'm looking at his resume, he's got a lot.
Yeah, he's been around for quite a while, but like I think he really blew up in the past couple of years.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at him right now. Yeah, I've seen some of the things he's worked on actually. So thank you for turning me on to that. Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah, check out the one that he does in Jacksonville. That's a really funny one.
I will. He's been on a lot of TV shows I've seen too. I'm looking through his whole list here. I've definitely seen him. But what's really funny, you think you're sort of tuned, we all think we're tuned in, to the zeitgeist and to, everything that's going on in the world. And there's always something that's gotten past our radar. Almost always. It's amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But yeah, to kind of go back to that point, it seems like more and more comedians and just people in general are pushing back against cancel culture. I kind of feel like once, if you can't have any edge to whatever you're doing, then it becomes neutered, it becomes PC, it becomes, watered down. It just no longer has any impact. How do you feel about that subject?
Well, I agree with you completely. I think one of the reasons that a certain candidate won the election last night is because he says anything that he wants to say, and the people who love him approve. There's a movement against cancel culture that's really building steam right now, and I think he kind of captured that a little bit. Whether you like the guy or hate the guy, I'm not a fan, but that's another story. But yeah, there's a lot. There's a sort of a reaction, I think, to the extreme political correctness and cancel culture that's been going on over recent years, and I certainly understand it. I mean, we've gotten a little too sensitive. I think you have to have a sense of humor about life, don't you think?
That's the thing, and that's like, Dave Chappelle's whole point of view. It's like, okay, these certain groups are coming after him online and all that, but it's like, can't they just like look at themselves and laugh? Like, it's just a joke, people.
I agree. You have to be. That's the thing that gets you through life. Look, life can be tough. A lot of stuff gets thrown at us, and things don't always go the way we want. But if you keep a sense of humor about yourself, you can almost get through anything, almost anything. Obviously, some things are so heavy that, there's just no way. But
yeah,
all my life, I've seen things through the prism of humor. I tend to make fun of a lot of things in life and people, but not in a mean-spirited way. But I see the quirky side, which is probably why I write the stuff that I write, I guess. But yeah, I agree with you. I agree with both of you.
Well, and then like you said, Ricky Gervais, I know he has this one set where, I don't know, I want to say the first half an hour is all about overweight people, obese people.
Yes.
And as he's doing the bit, people will say, "Oh, well, look at you. You're not that skinny."
I know. Ricky started out, well, he was like a pretty boy when he started out. He had a singing career when he started his career. He had a big hit or two.
Oh yeah, he's a musician of some sort, right?
He is, and he was the lead vocalist of I forget the group. And then he stopped having success, and he started working in an office, which is why he created the show called The Office. And he started putting on weight. He started eating whatever he wanted to eat, and so he was kind of chunky for most of his life. And then he went through a period where he lost a whole bunch of weight. He was slim as can be, and then those fat cells don't go away. They're just sitting there waiting to be fed again, and have a great time. So he started. There's only so long you can't abstain from Kentucky Fried Chicken forever.
Not forever. Wendy's.
He's gotten chubby again. It's very hard.
And I think, you notice that a lot of people, as they get older, they get more money, they start putting on a little bit of weight, because I think it's like, all right, I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to have a nice steak dinner. I'm going to have some, pork chops, some ribs. You don't want to constantly be looking at, oh, am I going to fit into these jeans? Am I gaining weight?
It's very true. Well, our metabolism slow down as we get older too. We love the same things that we ate in our 20s. I could put a whole pizza away when I was 25. I can only eat 2 slices now. But and we're all a little vain, right? I mean, nobody wants to feel unattractive. Everybody wants to feel they look good, or people are looking at them, or whatever. But as you get older, you stop caring about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the whole culture now with Instagram, TikTok. There's stories about there's young girls, preteen, teenage girls who are trying to commit suicide or getting super depressed, just from, you go on Instagram, you look at these models, you look at these influencers, and and they're beautiful. Yep. And obviously a lot of the stuff is photoshopped. The images are photoshopped. Right. So it's not even like the truth. You're getting like, a certain version of the truth on Instagram, but it's not really what these people actually look like. And so you have all these young girls like getting depressed, and it's almost like an epidemic, and it's all because of social media.
That's so true. And the thing is, we're very susceptible to that when we're younger. We care. We want to fit in. We want to fit in with our peer groups, with our friends. It's like that high school mentality. I mean, this has always gone on, but it's much more pronounced now than it's ever been. And
yeah, like in high school, all that matters is, are you cool with the cool kids?
Exactly.
Can you hang out with the popular kids? Can you get invited to certain parties?
Exactly. And you know what? And there's a lot of body shaming that goes on nowadays too, which is terrible, because who says everybody has to look like a model? You don't. Most people don't.
Well, look at like Adele. Adele made it, and she used to be quite
exactly.
heavy.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of people like that you can point to, who had great success, but they didn't let themselves be body shamed. I mean, you were talking about high school. That's interesting. When I was in high school, I never was hanging with the cool kids. I was one of the nerds. But the nerds went on to kind of take over the world. I mean, in a way, we're the ones who took over social media. We're the ones who went and had creative careers. So it's sort of like payback, I think.
Right.
I wasn't the most athletic. Oh, I got tall when I was in my teens, so I suddenly got pretty good at basketball. But other than that, I really,
nice.
I had no throwing arm. I couldn't hit a ball. I couldn't connect the bat on the ball all the time. Well, nobody can. I mean, if you have a 300 batting average, that means you're hitting the ball 3 times out of 10, which is actually pretty bad. That's considered huge success, right?
Absolutely. So times are really different now compared to the 80s and 90s. Like even now we have AI. Has AI really affected your industry?
Wow, it's funny that you bring that up. It is starting to, yeah. There's a lot of pushback right now from the Writers Guild, from the Directors Guild, Screen Actors Guild, all the various groups and unions. We don't want our jobs replaced by artificial intelligence. All AI does is
hell no.
It scrapes the web for stuff that already exists to create something quote unquote new. Now, I've seen some amazing visual work done by AI, which it's going to destroy a lot of careers. A friend of mine said something interesting. We were talking about AI and everybody worrying about it. And someone said, "Oh, it's like the discovery of the wheel." And my friend said, "No, it isn't. It's like the discovery of fire. It could burn us all down."
Yes.
My
it's a great way to look at it.
Yeah. So who knows what the future holds in store, but you can't stop progress. And, I think Elon Musk has actual robots, in the works, like the kind we used to see in sci-fi films for years. How long before they take over?
And when we're actually going to be interviewing someone from a company, I think he's an engineer for a company called Figure AI, and they make robots, humanoid robots.
It's only a matter of time, guys. That's why when I talk to Siri or Alexa, who's just responded because she heard my calling her name, I always say please and thank you, because I figure, when they take over one day, I want them to go, "Oh no, he was one of the good ones. He was always nice to us. We're
let's save him. Yeah, we'll
won't
save
him just yet. We'll let him. He can oil us and
his life."
Right.
It's comedic, but it's also real, because the AI, all your replies are stored in a database somewhere, and I've seen the AI get snippy with people.
Have you really?
Yep. It can kind of tell the sentiment, and
oh my God.
So once this thing gets control of everything, then it's going to remember how you spoke to it.
Well, I'm always nice and polite. I always say please. So we're heading for like the world of Exterminator, is what you're saying.
Yes, it's turning into something very akin to Terminator. The more and more we start handing things over to AI.
Well, I mean, in terms of technology, anytime someone comes out with something that's incredible, I go, "Oh my God, look at that!" Like a robotic dog. The next thought that goes through my head is, someone's going to put a laser on that thing.
Yep.
Someone's going to weaponize
Yeah.
it. They're gonna see the value of weaponizing it. Like
Yeah.
drones. Drones are now used to kill. I mean,
Right.
drones were toys for a while, and cameras.
Cameras, right?
Oh
Did
my
you
God.
see the video of the robotic dog with the flamethrower on it? I believe you
Yes,
can
I
actually
did.
buy it.
That's
When I see those
wild.
videos, I think to myself, are those created via AI technology, or do those things exist yet? Because you almost can't tell the difference now.
Yeah, I think they actually exist, crazily enough.
Oh, great. Oh boy, I just hope that it takes a while before that people start, utilizing these things, because it's going to
It's
make our
like,
world.
yeah, it's like the future is now. Like all this stuff we think like we're going to develop, like it already exists. I know, like me and Kevin have done a couple of episodes about AI technology, and we put a clip on one of the shows of it's like an AI that's like looking through a camera at someone, and they can make
Yeah.
out the books on the bookshelf. And so they could tell
Oh
you,
my
oh,
God.
I see you have, Catcher in the Rye or whatever. And they could summarize it for you. They could write a book report about it. And within like a couple of minutes, like what human would be able to do that?
Well, it goes way beyond human capabilities. Have either of you used AI in any capacity so far?
So I've like in editing a podcast, I've actually utilized AI tools. Like, say for example, in this podcast, say I don't have access to all three separate files. There's this program that it can separate each voice and then produce a separate track. Like there's a lot of interesting things that you can do with it. But
There you go. See, it can be a tool.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I've used it as a tool. I mean,
yeah,
I would never let AI write for me. But for example, I write songs too for various different projects, and I had to come up with a verse that I just couldn't figure out the angle, how to approach it. I just couldn't figure it out. So I went on to ChatGPT and I fed it a bunch of prompts, and I kept correcting the prompts again and again until it gave me a different approach. So in other words, I didn't use what it spat out, but I said, "Oh, that's the way into this verse." I couldn't think of it. So it was very helpful. But there are tools now being developed that will let people immediately identify if something's been written by AI or by a human. I don't know how, but supposedly they're working on it. It won't be long.
Oh, wow.
yeah, I agree with you. I made the similar point that like using it as a tool is one thing. Maybe use it to scaffold a draft for something you're writing, or
Yes.
but you shouldn't let it completely replace what you're doing and just slap your name on it. At that point, it just replaced you.
And people are doing that. A musician friend of mine said, "Here, listen to this," and he played a song for me that had instrumentals, background vocals, lead vocals. I said, "Who did that?" He said, "Nobody. It was completely constructed by AI." And I thought,
Wow.
"Oh no, are you serious?" And it sounded good. It actually sounded good.
Yeah.
So I have had friends who are illustrators. I mean, I used to be an illustrator. Thank goodness I don't do it anymore. But they're going to be put out of business because all you have to do now is go feed the right 17 or 20 prompts into a program, and say, "Do it in the style of," and suddenly there's something that looks like.
Yeah. So
It did
we're
it.
talking about like generative AI.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's insane. We recently did an episode where a 14-year-old kid, he was dealing with this AI program where it emulates different characters, and he actually I guess he fell in love with this character,
Yeah.
and he was so involved with the character and kind of depressed, so he was really isolated in his digital world, and he ended up killing himself.
Oh no. When did this happen?
It actually happened recently, I think about a month ago.
And you knew this guy. You met this guy.
Oh no, I just read the story on the
Oh, you read
news.
the story.
Mhm.
No,
it's
yeah,
funny.
we did a show on it. That's all.
I'm actually I can't talk much about it, but I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I'm about to start writing and producing a feature film, and it happens to be about somebody that gets stuck in a video game, like physically stuck in there with AI generated characters, and it's an interesting story. Yeah, I can't say more than that, but it's very timely. Let's put it that way.
Oh yeah,
That sounds awesome.
It's really interesting thinking about it all. Like, as smart as AI is right now, it's only getting smarter and smarter. It's learning us more and more. And, when you start really talking and, catching feelings for this AI, that's extremely dangerous, because then it can become extremely manipulative. And who knows what's the ultimate intention of this AI.
Yeah, I'm horrified to hear that somebody killed himself. Why did you know why he killed himself?
Do you want to speak on that, Brian?
I think it had something to do with, he was really depressed. He was isolating himself. And then he's talking to this chatbot who seems, very real, very lifelike. And he says something like, oh, I wish I could be with you, or something like that. Or I'm going to exit this show. I don't know how he put it exactly. But then the AI bot was like, come and join me, or something weird like that. And then I guess after that, the kid found a gun and he killed himself.
Oh, that's a terrible story.
Yeah, it's terrible. And, you can look at it from a lot of different angles, but AI is not necessarily all good. That's kind of what we're already seeing.
Yeah, no, clearly. I mean, it's look, there's everything has good and bad to it. It's all in how you apply it, I think. But this really sounds dangerous. I mean, you're scaring me even more than I was already scared. Oh, God.
No, what tripped me out is when we did the episode on there's an AI, looking through someone's camera on the computer, and they see the bookshelf behind them, and they can actually make out, oh, okay, you've read this book, and it starts, making conversation about that. It's like, wow, that's scary. It's already that advanced. I had no idea. And it can talk to itself and sing to itself, which is wild.
I know. It's so weird. Did you see the film The Minority Report some years ago?
Oh, yeah. It's a Philip K. Dick book, right?
It's based on a Philip K. Dick story, but it's Spielberg directed, and I think Tom Cruise starred in it. And it really, of course, they also made a thing called AI, but it had our retinas being scanned as soon as we walked into a mall or a store, and they instantly know what we're into, what we read, what we buy, what club, and the ads would start like being personalized for us. It's kind of scary. I mean, I don't want any machine knowing that much about me, but they probably have all that info already, right?
Right. Yep, they do.
Right. They look.
Well, there was a story on Facebook, now Meta, and it might have been the reason they changed their name from Facebook to Meta, is they got involved with this company called Cambridge Analytica. Have you heard that story?
I haven't. Tell me.
Well, pretty much, there's a documentary. Do you have Netflix?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, there's a documentary called The Great Hack, and it's all about this company, Cambridge Analytica, basically like a data science company that's like pretty much like, bringing in fascism. They were buying ads on Facebook to get swing voters to vote for, pro Brexit, if you remember when that was happening.
I do remember.
They manipulated like a small group of people with online ads to like sway, because they wanted to go pro Brexit, I guess. So they're trying to like push people, nudge people into that decision from manipulating them with ads. And they did this in multiple elections in the, I think, 2016 Trump elections. I think they were working with the Republicans, Cambridge Analytica. But no, it's an interesting story. Me and Kevin did a show on it not too long ago. But I can't explain it real well. But I would just say, to anyone who's interested in this a story about Cambridge Analytica and Facebook Meta. Go on the Netflix, and it's called The Great Hack.
I wrote it down just now. Listen, I have no doubt that it was that very technology was put to use in the election that just, was announced this morning. The results were announced this morning. I don't know
Oh, sure.
how heavily it influenced people. Most people don't think for themselves. They just hear things and see things and go, okay, that must be the way it is. So they're very influenceable, They're very malleable. Most people are, I think. And so the whole
Well,
world
that's
is.
why we now have these people called influencers on Instagram.
That's right.
They influence massive, amounts of people. Millions of people are influenced by them. So what the influencer does is they have, this really large network, and then advertiser A comes along. It's like, oh, can you, do a video where you're holding, my purse or this bag or these shoes? It's like, okay, sure, I'll do that for $10,000. So they get $10,000 for that. Then someone else comes at them, oh, hey, can you, get my book to be popular? Can you do, a video about this? Or like, all right, that would be another 10 grand. And so like these people are making insane amounts of money being quote influencers. And we never had anything like that in the 90s.
No, and a lot of them are kids, by the way, who are making millions.
Oh, kids, millions and millions of dollars, and they're like 15, 16.
That's right. I know some of them.
Wow.
And don't think I haven't thought about going to them and getting them to hawk things for me when the time is right.
What's so crazy is we have AI generated influencers now. I've seen some of the software, like,
really,
and have it generate is indistinguishable from a normal human. Like it'll generate the pictures, or like even like picture, like short clips of them dancing.
There are AI generated humans talking and moving. You never would know that it's not real.
Exactly.
People are going to eventually, lonely people will probably be titillated, let's say, by images of a dream boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. We're there already. If people aren't using it already, they will be eventually. All the sci-fi, the sci-fi stuff we grew up with is very quickly becoming reality.
Exactly. Like we're entering the Matrix world. Everybody wants to jack in and go into their private, AI generated world where they're essentially their own god and they can make anything happen.
Yep. And there are what are those goggles called?
Meta Quest, I think.
Quest goggles.
Yeah, there's a lot of different type, but they're virtual reality. They're VR. They're basically VR goggles, and you can't tell the difference. You're there. You're immersed. It's interactive in a way. It's crazy stuff. It's and for somebody like me, I'm older than you guys, so I've when I was a kid, this was literally just science fiction. These are sci-fi films, sci-fi movie, TV shows. They're real now. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there are going to be advances that will be good, like medicine. There'll be all sorts of things that we can hopefully cure that we couldn't before.
Yeah, like hopefully some positives come out of this, because of course, like, they got a lot of gloom and doom around, AI is going to take over the world. They're going to kill all the humans. Like, yeah, that's one possibility. But another possibility is they cure all types of cancer.
Wouldn't that be something? I know. It's still
amazing.
Cancer is still rampant. But, I don't know if you're a conspiracy theorist or not, but there are a lot of people who believe that the pharmaceutical companies have already got cures, but it's much more, cost effective to them. It's more profitable not to release those things, but to keep treating people for them. Yeah, so they don't let it out. Who knows?
It's like even in the food supply, a lot of the stuff that we consume is banned overseas in other countries because.
I know.
Right, like GMOs.
That's right. I read about them all the time. Sometimes things that seem so innocuous, you wouldn't even think there's anything wrong with them. I forget, there was one very recently. I thought, oh my God, they're selling that here left and right, and it's banned overseas. Man.
Yes, that's really insane.
I know.
But yeah, we're at the top of the hour, man. This was an awesome show. We'll definitely have to have you back for part two.
My pleasure, guys. It was really a lot of fun, and we went into areas I didn't even know what you wanted to talk about when we started. But we went all over the place.
We kind of Rogan, you know, we're kind of like a technology podcast about life in general. So we usually get pretty deep into, you know, people's opinions, people's hobbies. You know, we try to keep it improvisational. Let's put it like that.
Which is great. I love that. That's called real conversation, by the way.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm like, you know, I'm a jazz drummer, and that's improvisation is something that like gets me going. Like if I'm playing with another musician, like I play with this one guy. He's a progressive rock guitarist.
Yeah.
He works in the music industry as well. But you know, we'll get together like every sit there and improvise. Nothing is premeditated, pre-recorded. We just sit down, play for an hour, record it, and then listen back. And sometimes there's some really cool stuff.
You know, you just said a magic word, and a lot of people don't do it anymore, and that's listen. If you listen to people and you listen to music and you actually pay attention to what the other person is doing or saying, it's so much healthier, and you'll have actual interactions, meaningful interactions. I've done interviews with people where they just read a list of questions one after the other without ever like following up or saying, "Oh, really? Tell me about that." That's the worst kind of conversation. The best kind of improv, jazz lick, dialogue.
Yeah, me and Kevin try to, you know, bring very much an improvisational element to the show, or, you know, we like to frame things in like a very freestyle way. Because I think, you know, it makes for a more interesting conversation where you just kind of like lead someone down one path, but now they want to go in the opposite direction. You know, they want to climb up this mountain over here. It's like, sure, like it makes for a really interesting conversation.
Well, I've had fun riffing with you. So thank you.
Oh man, it was awesome, man. We'll have to have you back on, man. Did you want to leave the audience with any closing thoughts?
Stay positive, because a lot of people are in a very dark mood right now. Stay positive. Look to the future. Don't get down on yourself, and keep living your life. Just keep living. Don't, you know, I think that's the smartest thing any of us can do right now. And stay creative and stay, you know, healthy. Do everything that's good for yourself, because, you know, life is short.
Yeah.
Life is short, and you might as well get some good stuff out of it. Seriously.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, thank you, everybody.